Normally Nima doesn't. Okay, we're live. I forgot to play the intro music. So normally Nima does the technical stuff, but we are live. We're here for episode 3 of Expected Grass, and you will see Nima's been replaced. Not forever, just this time. I've got my good friend FPL Fran on and a nerd takeover. Fran, welcome. How you doing, mate?
Thanks for inviting me. Nice to be on the show for the second time, the first time, but then actually be the first guest as well. So appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. So yeah, this week I think we're just going to talk about what happened in Game Week 3. No, what happened in Game Week 2. What we're thinking of Game Week 3. Maybe some stuff around Wildcard 3. It seems to be quite popular. What the hell is going on with the price drops? It's been like 90 this game week.
Yeah,
that's got to be a record, right?
I think so. I mean, like every day I feel like I see 3 pages worth of price drops. So
yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I feel like if you haven't had a price drop yet, I don't know what kind of voodoo magic you're pulling, to be honest. I had my first one last night with Bruno Fernandes, and I feel like I've just been like swerving them somehow until then. And then yeah, so why don't we kick off? Like Fran, I'm going to stick your team on screen. Why don't you talk us through how your game week 2 went? You did some pretty wild stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean the only wild thing was triple captain Haaland. I also transferred Enrico Lewis because I was one of the Kwanzaa owners, and it just made sense for me to go either Lewis or Robinson because I didn't really want to eat the price drop at the time. But the rest of the team I think is pretty simple. I had Saka, Nkunku, Bruno, Eze. Maybe the only different pick I suppose is João Pedro. Again, some of the other budget forwards in the game. So it was actually nice to see him play a lot of minutes. But yeah, I mean, triple captain Haaland probably the only thing I was happy about really with this week.
The only thing you were happy with? Okay. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it carried you pretty nicely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did make up like 60% of your points or something.
Exactly.
which is a lot. Okay, so talk us through the triple captain stuff, because obviously I kind of poo-pooed this on the last episode. And to you as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I was saying, I just think, okay, looking at the season, you just have to sort of make a call really on what you think the mystery chip is, if you really want to consider the triple captain at all before we know what the mystery chip is. I think in most seasons that I played, I probably triple captain when everyone else does, which, you know, it's not really me sort of selecting any sort of risk profile whatsoever, but just seems to be what I tend to do. So I felt like with this opportunity being one of the best single game weeks on paper and based on most of the team models I look at, most of the projected points for the whole season, that, you know, this is the best single game week captaincy. So I just went with it really based on that.
Okay, nice. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, the mystery chip thing is bizarre. And I guess it means you're kind of betting on there being like no kind of random levels from like weather, or we had obviously like Tom Lockyer like tragically having like cardiac arrest last year. And there's well, not always actually. I think someone on the Discord looked at it, and outside of the COVID years, it kind of happened about half the time. Yeah. So it's interesting. I have to say, you getting a hat trick out of the Haaland triple cap has made me a little tempted to find a way to squeeze him in for game week 9 against Southampton at home, which is probably just me being stupid, but hey. Okay, my team was not too bad. 69 score, nice. After some like late voodoo magic with the bonus, I don't know why those Rare and Gabriel points came in so late. I have no idea what's going on with the bonus changes like a day after the game. But whatever, I'll take it. It's two more points for me. Salah's still pretty good. And yeah, what do you ended up on like 87, right?
Yeah.
So like kind of like one point higher when you take out the triple captain than me.
Yeah.
On the kind of base team, which is not too bad. Obviously, I think we both have Nkunku. What are you going to do about him?
I've already sold him. I already sold him to Rogers the day that he was going to get his first price drop.
Okay, yeah, nice. I also sold him. I went to Eze, had like a spare half mil. I started the team with. Talk me through Rogers. What are you cooking up in the future?
I mean, I think the nice thing about Rogers with someone in my position is I'm not someone who has 8 attackers, right? So, I don't have too much flexibility. I have to sell Nkunku no matter what, really, or wild card. And I liked Rogers because the comparable options to Nkunku were probably Gibbs White and Bailey. Gibbs White isn't great for my draft because I have to tank that Liverpool away fixture in game week 4, unlike some people who have 8 attackers and can sort of rotate him. With Bailey, I think it's just like, if I have a little bit more money in the bank, I think that just inevitably means I'm more flexible than most people who have 0 in the bank. And even though my projected transfers are something like, Haaland out and then Saka to Salah, which means I still have that money in the bank, there are still sort of scenarios that can prop up where that money in the bank can be nice. And I don't think there's too much really between Rodgers and Bailey right now for me to just sort of sink in the cash there. And I think the only rogue pick I thought about was Sobo from Liverpool, who actually sort of had the expected sort of value, I would suppose, that could actually match what I want without the flexibility. But yeah, I decided Rodgers in the end, and a little bit of sort of looking at some of his market odds as well. It was quite high compared to some of the other options that I already mentioned, and I just wanted to jump onto Rodgers really.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so not like earmarking it for anything specific. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then Schlobosai is a really interesting one, actually.
Yeah,
I'm quite curious about him. I think the third Liverpool spot taken up is the thing which like really kind of kills it, because I can just see so many worlds where I want Trent or Robbo, Salah, and one other attacker or both fullbacks at the same time. Obviously, I have like a little soft spot for Darwin Núñez, which is my forever downfall.
I think all of us sort of like going Darwin whenever the situation arises. But yeah, I mean, I think another thing too is, I am pretty locked into an early wild card, so it wasn't a huge issue. I also don't have Salah, so if I was ever considering Sobo, I suppose he really just would have been filling a job for me for 3 weeks, whereas other people probably want to be a bit more flexible about how they approach Liverpool.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I already have 2, and avoided Alisson in game week 1 to not triple up on Liverpool.
Got you. Yeah.
But then did triple up on Arsenal by doing so. So I could have snooked myself in a different way. Talk to me about the wildcard. You were locked in pretty much on 6 before the season started, right?
Yeah.
No temptation to pull it earlier. It's pretty popular.
Yeah, I mean, you've already mentioned it. Wildcard 3 seems pretty appetizing. I think for people who are sort of on my draft where you have Haaland only, you don't really have many Arsenal assets. It sort of makes sense to jump on a wildcard 3 because you're kind of going into those Arsenal assets that you probably missed out on. So like the extra defender compared to most, maybe even if you really are like, I don't know, anti-Watkins, I suppose you can still go with Havertz now, hold him for quite a while, as opposed to just, go Isak and then transfer down to Havertz, something like that. I think those are the kind of considerations. But yeah, because I think one of the nice things with my team is I have Rico Lewis, and when I look at the value of Lewis potentially starting over the next 2 weeks, I like the idea that he's a big part of my potential expected value gain within my team. And I can't necessarily call his minutes if I was to wildcard. So if I wildcard him in game week 3, there's no way I would be going Rico Lewis because I wouldn't be so sure about his minutes. Whereas now that I own Lewis, I might as well try and squeeze out as much value from him and then, revisit a wildcard when I intended to do so on wildcard 6. So yeah, as I said, I have no issues in my team now, but that's because I've already used my 2 free transfers so far. And if any issue sort of arises, so if let's say Eze gets injured as we record, then yeah, I have to pop the wild card.
Okay, yeah. And how are you feeling about Lewis's minutes in general? Do you like optimistic or?
Yeah, I think pretty optimistic. I mean, it's nice, of course, that I get to see like someone like Luke's opinions on how he thinks City will line up and things like that, and seeing maybe even the Kovacic injury that they don't have too many midfield bodies right now, Rodri not being ready. So these sorts of things lead me to believe that I can still, grab some Rico Lewis starts over the next 2 weeks, and that's crucial for me because game week 4 is one where, game week 3 rather is one where I could bench Porro versus Newcastle. Game week 4 is one where I could probably bench Porro again versus Arsenal. So ideally, I can just stay on this team with Lewis starting over the next 2 weeks, and they play on the first day, so we might get leaks, but we might not as well because I don't think we got leaks last week.
Okay, yeah. Nice. Yeah, I guess it's like kind of pure upside because you got all the value you needed out of game week 2, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's absolutely right.
Nice. But I think, I agree. I think wild card 3 is viable if you're in a position where you own Haaland and you probably also had like a Quansah and you have an Nkunku issue and you have another one kind of brewing. So if you're getting into the thing where you're more issues than you have free transfers available, you can get onto a really nice structure which is I think what I'm going to be aiming for in mind as well.
Yeah.
Where you can get on Saka, Salah, Palmer, cheap forwards, expensive defense. You can probably squeeze in Nkunku. You don't have to go 3, 4, 5 5s. And then you can just rotate those 3 midfield spots, like Son and Foden in and out with Saka and Palmer for the fixtures. It's really nice. I really like that structure a lot. It's something actually I'm looking to do with my team. So if I just bang it back on the screen again, I can make like quite a spicy move in game week 5. So if we got my team here, in game week 5, I can go Isak down and Bruno Fernandes up. I think that gets me Palmer and Armstrong with a bunch of spare cash. And that pretty much gets me on the structure I want. Just got to find a way to turn Muniz into Solanke, and I'm pretty much there, like to avoid a wild card long term. So it's pretty nice, and I would be looking to build something like similar midfield wise if I was going to wild card 3. I definitely think it's definitely up for consideration. I think there's a lot of people in the analytics community that are just kind of looking at the review kind of chip timings thing and seeing 3 ahead right now. That's not that alone is not like a good reason to wildcard in 3, in my opinion. Like in general, that's always going to overrate your early wildcard just because you have information coming in the future weeks. You have like extra weeks in the horizon. You have changes in EV, people getting injured, and all this kind of stuff that unless it's like way ahead, then I would be a little bit hesitant. But if you're planning to work hard in 4 anyway, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think the key thing, as you mentioned too, is because you're on a Salah only team, so it doesn't even really feel like it's a stretch for you to get towards a wildcard 3 structure. Whereas anyone on Haaland now staring at future price drops and wanting to avoid hits or whatever, like it makes sense to consider a wildcard 3 in their situation. But definitely, if I was on your team, I'd not consider it for 1 second.
Yeah, for sure. Are they? I think what you mentioned earlier with the kind of price farming, I think you may have missed the boat if you haven't already activated it. Like if you're still choosing whether to wildcard now, you're probably not going to get as much of the kind of price benefit. I don't think they're going to keep going at like 30 a day for the whole week. Like it's got to calm down, right?
Yeah, it is surprising. I don't know. Do you think it's because they've changed the algorithm for price changes, or
potentially? Yeah. Although it seems like the predictors are getting it pretty accurate,
that's a fair point as well.
That kind of leads me away from thinking they've changed the algorithm massively. I think there's a lot of activity going on. I don't really remember what it was like previous seasons, but I'm just kind of looking at this transfer out page here. I don't know if you can see it. It's zoomed in, like, but so many players, like 500,000, 400,000, 400,000, 400,000. Like there's been a lot of transfers when you just start like adding those up, and it goes like there's a long tail of like over 100k as well. So yeah, people are really moving. I gained like 10k places before the game week kicked off last week just from like hits and not making a transfer, which is insane.
And you were already in a high rank as well, so that's quite
yeah, it's like 10% or something. So I
Yeah.
started at like 100k, now like 600k, but I don't know, game week 2 rank, who cares? But yeah, it's insane. Like I think there's like a ton of people going Isaac to Welbeck or Pedro, it seems, and Watkins down as well, and then like Foden down to like ESR and Madueke, and then like people are just piling into the kind of Palmer, bit of De Bruyne, bit of Haaland, just because he's obviously got the points.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems to be like concentrating out of that like 7 to 10 mil bracket into like budgets and premiums, which I think is kind of interesting, like structure in the meta. Okay, I'm going to take a few of the questions from the chat. So Nima says hi. That's enough of Nima. He chose not to show up. Can't be having it. Can't be having it. One from FN. Was I aware of a possible Eze drop when I made the transfer? That'd be the one from Nkunku. Yeah, I was. It didn't really put me off. I just think he's the best replacement I could get. And the fact that he's going to drop in price doesn't really bother me that much. If he does drop, I'd rather own him before the drop than afterwards. If I was going to have Nkunku drop and him drop, then it's better for me to have the first rise be like gaining back sale value. So that was like, you only get half the drop essentially of the Nkunku, even if Eze drops. Because I think Eze's price trend is going to be up, not down over the kind of medium term. I think he's a really good pick. As long as he keeps getting the minutes, doesn't get injured, then yeah, I think his price will go up because I think he'll score points. People will buy him. Yeah, agree with you, Knox. I like your pick on Rogers, Fran. Yeah, hard to go wrong with the price. This one for you. You're getting flattered by John Day. He says, finally, some nice eye candy on the pod. Cheers, John. And what about this one from C Hunt? What's your thoughts on Foden?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, so he's sort of pointing out the good run of City games. I think just like you said, right? If you own Saka, Salah, Palmer, and that's your structure, you can just move out of one of those picks, maybe even Salah, into someone like a Foden then. But we don't really know, I guess, how good his minutes would be in the sort of new tactical structure, whether he plays central, whether he plays a little bit towards the wing. I'm sure his minutes will be good this season. That's not really what I'm questioning, but I just think you don't have to really consider it, and it's not going to be a big issue if you just go into the players that we sort of mentioned. So when Foden looks like a good pick, you can just jump onto him then, and yeah, he'll definitely be an option.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's going to be really interesting because City have a nice game, really nice game in 7, really nice game in 9. I think they have Fulham at home in 7, Southampton at home in 9.
Yeah,
and they're 2 fixtures I really want to be on some City for. So I'm trying to work out like how much can I fiddle around with my Arsenal structure or get off them for 4 and 5 and back on them in 6, versus save my free transfers to get onto City for 7 and 9. And yeah, because obviously I have 0 City being on the Salah draft. Didn't go with Edison or Guardiola or anyone like that, and it worries me. I'm really kind of considering quite a spicy idea where I managed to somehow save some free transfers for 9, get onto Haaland, potentially triple captain him, potentially not, and wildcard out of that structure in 10. Because when I keep looking at the solves, it's like it wants me to dip in Haaland and then sell him immediately or ignore him altogether. And I think like now is not a bad time to get off Haaland if you're going to do it. It's not urgent, but like, yeah, next week or 5, 6, you probably want to be doing it. Just because he's not the best captain, or not clearly the best captain, I should say, in any game week until 9. On the projections, I think it's pretty close some weeks, but there's no like urgent need to have a Haaland, and if you want to free up cash, like it's a nice way to do it, obviously. So yeah, just looking at the projection, I think over the next like 5 or so on review, like Salah, Haaland, and Palmer are all like roughly even for total points. And there's no standout weeks for captaincy for Haaland. Saka's pretty clear in 4 and 5. Sorry, 5 and 6, 6 and 7 even. Losing my game weeks, they're all over the place. And then like Salah's clear in 1, and then it's pretty close in a couple of others until 9. But yeah, you could definitely get rid. You could definitely get rid and then try and get back on City. Like how are you thinking about navigating when you're just going to wildcard it, right?
Yeah, I mean because I own Haaland, as you said, I have to take him out on game week 5 probably as things stand because I've used 2 free transfers so far. So to save 2 free transfers to move out of Haaland to get into Salah, that has to be done on game week 5 for myself. And then I wild card into a no Haaland team anyways. But the key thing is I would be able to move back into players like Palmer and stuff like that, because right now I'm sitting on players like Bruno, who I might not want to keep when it comes to the wild card in game week 6. So that's sort of the big shift there, I suppose, for me, and back into the Arsenal players that I don't have in my team.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of but then in wildcard 6, I guess you wouldn't. I know it's too early to really think about it, but kind of early thoughts is like on the kind of premium structure. How would you think about it there?
I think a part of it maybe depends on Foden's availability as well, but preliminarily I would just say that I'd have Saka and Palmer. But then when you sort of adjust, let's say Salah's availability, you sort of realize that he's also just obscenely good. So I might just be on the game week 3 sort of template structure, but we'll see.
Okay, nice, but not back into a Haaland structure.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay, yeah. Because I was thinking your move into Salah like a week before wildcard to get the captaincy is kind of similar to what I'm trying to think with that like 9 and wildcard.
With the Haaland move, yeah, makes sense.
But that's kind of I'd be then trying to wildcard out of that move. Yeah, it's interesting. Like how do you think about like the cost of 2 free transfers, given that they actually cost you before a wildcard now? They're not just dead end, like use them or lose them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think like someone like 11 and 5 is considering a wildcard simply because of that, because you might even want to just wildcard, save the free transfers, and then address moves like that. But I feel like a lot of 2 free transfers this season are just sort of moving around to the optimal premium that has a captaincy, and where there's a big sort of EV swing, as you mentioned. And so it really comes down to how sizable those swings are, as opposed to maybe how whether I feel like there's a set free transfer value that I really sort of stick towards or something like that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at it now. Like currently has Salah like about a point clear of Son in second, and like of the ones that people actually own, say like Salah, Saka, Haaland's second on like 2.3 behind Salah, and obviously double that up for captaincy, and that
that's pretty huge.
I guess you're hit and change, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's like that's a bigger gap than, let's say, I think Haaland versus Palmer on game week 9. But ultimately, I think what you probably have to consider is like, is it nice to actually keep someone like Haaland after game week 9, that sort of thing, and it probably actually is for some managers, might not be for some others. Like with Salah, I think a lot of people just like the look of sort of not having him after game week 5, but in reality, it's only game week 9 that's a problem week for Salah, I suppose, on that run. So a lot of it comes down to that 1 week and how you evaluate not having an option for that week.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's I got some like kind of moves which is died down a bit of just going like Salah to Palmer in game week 6, which I think is maybe just a bit too spicy.
Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds like it.
I think it just doesn't feel like a move which helps my structure long term. Yeah, but it's I even got like, I think one of the guys Exploitation on the Discord did it. I got Saka to Palmer in game week 2 as a suggested move. He had a very, very similar team to me, and he went
Right.
pro, and he's
Okay.
absolutely cooked last week as a result.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely quality. Just fixture chasing, and I think we're going to see a lot of that this season. It's going to be like difficult to adjust to from the previous seasons where there was like you just had your premiums in place and the kind of rest of the team, and the good picks were so obvious because there wasn't enough of them. That the incentive to kind of like jump around, go fixture chasing, was a lot smaller. One, because you had a lot more value tied up, and everyone did because no one's selling the good players. And two, because the downgrade you have to make in terms of like player quality would just end up being like too large. And so like the whole meta is going to like change, I think, this season in terms of how you use transfers, not only because of the rules, but also the pricing.
Yeah, it's a good point because I think in the past, a lot more people were probably comfortable making transfers over lower priced assets who just realistically the EV gain for swapping between such players is quite low. But like at a minimum, I suppose the only ones that we'd really consider are things like Mbumo to Eze, where you have a huge swing between like Gimmy's 4 and 5. But even still, a lot of managers might just completely override that because of wanting to sort of prioritize the transfers on the Fodens and the Palmers of the world. So for people who are, let's say, on wildcard 3, for example, you deal with a situation where, let's say, you have Mbumo, you know that the fixtures are bad on 4 and 5, but you have an amazing fixture in Gaming 3. So you either look at a line like Mbumo to Eze and ignore it because it really just is a case of how you value free transfer, or you just, let's say, go Eze and do the exact opposite because they're both amazing. But there will be great swings from that too.
Yeah, I got a lot of suggested Nkunku to Mbumo instead of going to Eze, and then like immediately selling Mbumo after buying him and getting Eze in 4, and I was like, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. Like,
yeah, some people are looking at Nkunku to Gibbs White for a similar reason, right? You're just shopping Gibbs White for a week, but I feel like that is a bit of a luxury, and very quickly things can go poorly in FPL. So like when you do a transfer like that, you probably just I tend to ignore it, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the way I'm kind of thinking about it is we have, well, let's say like it's what, roughly 35, 36 free transfers. And you probably can basically use them whenever you want in the season. It's going to be very rare that we actually get up to 5, just kind of playing normally. And that means if you're saving one, you probably actually have freedom to spend it wherever. And so when I'm looking at like jump on Mbumo and then jump on Eze, I'm like, is this worth a potential -4 in like game week 28?
Yeah.
I'm like, no. And like it shouldn't be that high, obviously, because then you actually would just roll every week and then start burning transfers. But yeah, like you say, there's just so many things that can go wrong. Players that can get injured, players that can get dropped. It doesn't feel like we're in like a settled enough place to be making luxury moves like that. I've already got too many things I want to like pencil in down the line, and so yeah, I couldn't get on the Mbumo train. I mean, I could well regret it because if he scores like 12 points as he blanks, like it's 2.5 hits, right? And then I look like a complete idiot, like trying to save a transfer. But yeah, I just thought I'd get on the long-term option, have it in place, and then just like be able to make moves elsewhere. Cool. We got some more questions from the chat. So we got one from Zone, said FPL Trout tweeted that because the million is worth about like 0.3 to 0.35 for every game week, then it means like avoiding a 0.1 like price drop in game week 2 should yield you about just over a point across the rest of the season. And he says, what do you think about that? Are we not being aggressive enough in pursuing or avoiding price changes? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to the point that you raised earlier, where you said Eze is going down in price in the short term, but in the medium term, we expect his price to go up. So, we're all picking players who expect to do well. So that's the main goal. And then if it doesn't work out and then those prices drop, then you're going to be left in the same spot if you were chasing price rises for players who you would expect to project to do well, but can clearly get a price drop afterwards. The same way Madueke can go down in price, start the next game, and suddenly have a price rise. So I think if you have key transfers to make and they're very significant, like going out of Nkunku, then I absolutely make those moves to avoid a price drop. Or let's say moving out of Kwanzaa, where it was very reasonable, I would say that he was going to get benched again. But yeah, when you have a situation where Bruno and Eze are dropping and you're not considering a wild card, then you shouldn't be doing anything more to try and be aggressive for price, to prevent price drops at least.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I ended up with a really low team value last year, so and got kind of like consistently screwed on the EV like in the later season as a result.
Right.
It's like, so I was always like kind of just one downgrade behind the template, which is fine, but kind of annoying. And I think what happened there is it wasn't really a question of like making early transfers. I made an early transfer in game week 2 actually, shifting Gabriel, but I just kind of kept going like out of the frying pan into the fire. So like when Gabriel had Chilwell, had like Ruben who kept dropping, and it was when the minutes fell off that you end up with the multiple drops. Either that or you just get like super unlucky, which can also happen. Because obviously like Bruno Fernandes kept playing, Rashford kept playing, but they just kept blanking, and therefore just kept going down. But I agree. I think if you think the player is going to do well and you're confident in the minutes, then I think it's kind of absolutely fine to just bring them in and don't worry about it, and like don't sweat a drop. And like you say, if you need to transfer them out anyway, then yeah, hurry and rush, especially early on when you have these kind of like 0.5 gaps. The Nkunku one is like especially interesting because the 6.5 tier, like you said, is such a crapshoot. Like it's only Gibbs White who's kind of semi-interesting, maybe Slobosai for a short term, and like the 6.0 below it is even more of a crapshoot. Like if you're forced to go there, like there's literally no one, right? Like I haven't thought about a 6.0 midfielder at all. Like maybe Joe Linton.
Yeah, I couldn't even name you one. So
it's not good. It's not good. So you definitely don't want to end up shopping in there. So it's like with Nkunku, then you either go to a 6.5. I was kind of lucky I had half a mil in the bank, so that's unusual though. And then you're right down to the 5.5s or 5.0s, and I think that's why Rodgers, and then I think the Smith Rose will be quite popular in the market. Antoine Semenyo actually getting minutes. My guy Minter, like all these guys are then becoming options, but that doesn't really like. You get cut off from all the 6.5s, so you get cut off from your Ben Johnsons, your Gibbs Whites, your Doku's, which I've seen mentioned in the chat, Sobosai, Joe Felix, and you end up at like Joe Linton. Then that's like a big like downgrade in terms of the options that you have, and that especially means you want to be quite aggressive with your price changes like within the week. So I don't feel good like Eberechi Eze playing when he's just been transferred into my team and he's currently like playing in the EFL Cup. That doesn't feel good. Okay, it can definitely go wrong, especially not because I'm not in a position where I want to just pull the wild cards as a safety net. That's true for some people. They're in a position where they're like, okay, well, I'm kind of on the fence about wild carding soon anyway, and so if it goes wrong, I'll just hit the wild card, like no drama. I don't feel like that. I want to save it. Like I feel like that's going to be like an advantage for me if I can be in a position where I can then save it and stuff goes wrong and I can use it later on. So yeah, it doesn't feel comfortable, but I think yeah, because of this kind of 1 point thing, I think it's just worth doing. What are your thoughts on Doku? We've got a comment from Mo. And why are people sleeping on Doku? Is the same price as Nkunku?
I mean, you're sort of jumping into Man City minutes, and when Foden comes back into the team, there's effectively at least 4 players competing for 2 spots in the wing positions, and it's not even really worth it for me to jump into someone like Doku. That's just my personal opinion, just because he could get benched any game, and then he's less value than most of the 6.5s that we already consider were quite boring. So yeah, I think Savio, same sort of logic there, but you can argue with one less player, I suppose, who's naturally a right winger down with Bob, he might be more interesting, to be honest. But I think when you're already dealing with a very volatile pick, assuming that you have a pretty fragile team as it is, like I myself only have 7 attackers, so I don't really want to be transferring another player who's a future transfer out, because as we just said, you probably want to be saving transfers realistically for those premiums. And so sort of going in and out of players like Doku when the minutes go good or bad, it doesn't really sound too robust to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And Nkunku to Doku seems like out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah, exactly right.
Like you're just making yourself like be in the same situation in like 1 or 2 game weeks. Maybe you pick up some points along the way to make it like net out, but probably not. Okay, Nox says he did get Mboma in this week and bench him into in game week 4. Yeah, if you can bench Mboma in 4, I think it's what Fran was saying with the 8 attacker structure. It gives you a lot more flexibility to kind of eat that fixture. I just really wanted Eze for the medium term. And then, what do you think of Munoz, the Crystal Palace defender? There was a lot of chat around him preseason. 5.0 defender. Crystal Palace defense, pretty good last year. He was pretty attacking. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's a curious one, because when you look at the data, you'd think that he'd have a lot more, expected value maybe on review, for example, compared to, let's say, a Guehi or an Anderson, when Anderson was still at Crystal Palace. But there's not a huge gulf there, so that does feel a little bit odd, I would say, like instinctively. But I think we're already a little bit low on Crystal Palace to start the season, with some of the transfers and lack of transfers in to sort of replace key players. And Guehi still seems like he might be on his way out. I think that there's a point made definitely that Munoz is definitely someone you want to look at one point, like game week 4 onwards, that sort of thing. But I think the thing is, he's also sort of competing with some other players who are very valuable, like Porro, and you feel maybe it depends really on how comfortable you are on, let's say, Crystal Palace defense versus Tottenham defense, because I don't really have concerns about him as an attacker or his minutes. But yeah, for whatever reason, I don't think his EV seems to be accurately reflected. I might be completely clueless, so maybe you can clue me in.
No, I think you're right on the EV stuff. He pops up like very rarely in the kind of sensitivity runs.
Yeah.
Not like 0, so he's not like complete no-hoper. It's not the kind of move I think I would be trying to make a transfer on, though, as long as you can get your rotation to kind of avoid the most difficult fixtures. So I wouldn't want to play him in like 3 against Chelsea, 7 against Liverpool, 9 against Spurs. But as long as you kind of pre-worked out your rotations when you're picking your team in advance, I think it's fine just to hold him. Okay, so like, which teams have surprised you in the first kind of opening games, like better or worse? Or is it kind of everything as expected? Obviously, comes with a huge asterisk of sample sizes. I'm just going to put that like up front. I'm not going to like keep repeating it. Like everything we talk about here has that asterisk. But like, yeah, shoot.
I think probably just Brighton and maybe just Brighton. But I mean, I was expecting Brighton to be good because of the transfers they made. But it's just nice to see that they've really like hit the ground running. That's probably it. I think every other team looks about as good as I thought they were, really. I don't know. Has anything struck out to you?
Yeah, a couple of things, actually. I think Liverpool have been quite impressive.
Yeah, 100%.
So for the uninitiated, I run a team strength model. And this is what I have the kind of like change in rating since the start of the season. So it's how well the model thinks they are now compared to how well they thought they were at the start of the season. So kind of have they overperformed or underperformed what I thought at the start of the season. Newcastle are kind of interesting. I would put like a big caveat on that one. They obviously played with 10 men for half against Southampton, and that's basically where all that rating changes come from.
Yeah,
they were pretty much like as expected against Bournemouth and the metrics. Nottingham Forest, like they absolutely like beat up Southampton like pretty convincingly at the weekend, which I think is potentially a good signal for them. It remains to be seen how good Southampton are. Obviously, they had that 10 men game in the first game, but if they can absolutely like dominate another relegation candidate, like that's a really nice game for them. Brighton popping, like you say, Spurs attack popping, like you say. The ones that like make me not concerned, but like kind of curious on the downside. Everton comes with like a bit of an injury caveat.
Yeah,
they were surprisingly good last year, especially in defense. I think they had like fourth or fifth like best expected goals against non-penalty. Like they were a sneaky good defense, and that doesn't look like they've started the season looking like that. And then Arsenal attack has been like actually quite anemic first couple, and they put up like under 1.5 xg against Wolves, and same against Villa. So the other ones I'm kind of keeping my eyes on. Just kind of outliers. This will probably not look like this in a few more games time, but just some kind of early things that I'm watching. Any thoughts on them?
That's interesting. I think last season we had Arsenal starting pretty slow in offenses as well, so I wonder if that's sort of some sort of repetitive theme. But nice to see Wolves actually where they are. I mean, they have actually put out some good performances considering the teams that they've faced. But I'll be curious to see how long that lasts for Wolves.
Yeah, that makes sense. I should also like draw the viewers' attention to the scales on this. Like the numbers are really tiny. So we're talking like I think Wolves are like about like less than 0.02 goals better than we thought at the start of the season. So it's not much, because obviously it's only 2 games, so it's not going to shift around too much. But I agree, they played a nice game against Arsenal, and then what did they do at the weekend? Oh, they actually played okay against Chelsea, didn't they? They lost 6-2.
Yeah, in terms of XG, yeah, it was pretty close.
Yeah, and like the extract was kind of in their favor as well. I think it was just like Chelsea shot really well. Okay, we've got some more specific ones. We're gonna do a bit of surgery on people's teams. You ready?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. Hall, FaZe, Mazraoui. Start one.
I think you have to go Hall and just hope that he starts.
Yeah, I probably agree. Maybe FaZe, if you're not convinced he starts.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I wouldn't want to start a Manchester United defender against Liverpool.
No.
That seems like a recipe for minus points. What should we do? Son. Okay. Wants to sell him because 5th mid is Diaz, 3rd forward is Xerxes. So sell Son and Xerxes. So that would give you what, 18 million budget for a midfielder or forward. So let's say you've got that. What would be your 2 picks?
Yeah, Palmer Kai, I think makes a lot of sense if you're going to spend 18 mil.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's kind of pretty obvious. Like, no need to overcomplicate it. Maybe you don't want to go Havertz like before the 4-5 like tough run.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think we aren't super high on Watkins' minutes, or maybe I'm not there to say he's going to play 90 minutes every game now. And then I think you don't really have many forwards that compare. So it's Isak, I suppose. But yeah, I was interested in running some wildcard 3 solves, and Havertz did pop up. If you wanted like a little bit more of a robust sort of solve where you just only made transfers in game week 8, so no transfers for 4 or 5 weeks, I still saw Havertz there. So I think as long as you're reasonably high on his minutes, it does work out. And obviously Palmer is just such a huge upgrade over like even someone like Mbumo. You still have the same issue where 4-5 is pretty poor. So I would just go because Palmer's the upside there. I would go Palmer and just try and cover with Havertz.
Yeah, probably makes sense. It's kind of a shame for that position that Solanke's out, because that would fit really.
It's true.
It's definitely someone I've got on my radar for kind of like 5 onwards.
Yeah, I've actually got like Solanke as a 1 week punt sort of lined up for game week 5. But yeah.
And then straight out.
Yeah.
Who for?
As an on wildcard 6. Not sure. Yeah, haven't really decided yet. We'll find out. Maybe it could be Solanke still. So.
Okay, nice. And you might say, I haven't felt like Liverpool will concede so far this season. Yeah, their defense has been insane. They've hardly conceded any chances. I mean, it's a reasonably easy start, like fixture wise. But yeah, I agree. I think they definitely looked like very controlled.
Yeah, this game's the test, right? Game week 3, I guess. Whatever the test is.
Man United. I was gonna say, how much of a test really is it?
Yeah, more a test for Man United, but I think it's like the one somewhat tough game for Liverpool for their first like 7 games. So,
wow, tough,
yeah,
tough.
Just being kind to United.
Why?
I've got Bruno on my team still, so he needs to do something.
Yeah, that's true. Me too. Do you have any worries about him? He dropped in price, obviously.
You know what I tend to look at like week to week is whether the baselines move too much, and I think that's sort of what pushed me towards wildcard 8 last season. I had Bruno and Rashford, wasn't really liking the look of that, so then I just decided to jump off them intuitively because I just couldn't stand United, and I even went off their defense, whereas most people like still went on Dallo. But the same signs again this season. They look absolutely horrible, but they've signed Ugarte today, so we'll see what they do with it. But I don't suddenly expect them to like be a good team immediately. So it's a huge wait and see. But Bruno is a known quantity. He still provides so much value. So he's not really going to push anything for my team, given that I have bigger fish to fry with like players like Nkunku that I transferred out. So yeah, happy to own him, but I won't see him probably on a future wildcard maybe.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Just because the kind of running out of midfield spots. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree. I think the only thing that maybe puts a little doubt on my head is a couple of like earlier subs.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's had like stupidly good underlying data these first couple. He's been playing false / not that false 9.
Yeah.
And he's just been like point dodging like an absolute madman.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think I saw a chart of like FPL points versus expected points from the shots they've actually taken and stuff. I think Bruno was bottom by like I think he's on like -12 or something, and like second bottom was Eze on -8.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
still good picks, right?
Yeah, Bruno seems fine as long as those minutes kind of hold up. If he doesn't like stay in the 9 role, like if he moves out, I think his value drops as an asset quite a bit. I think we'll have to wait and see like what happens with Højlund, Xerxes, etc.
Because I think like Mount was forced off as well, right? So they kind of have less bodies too, just in general.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I feel a little bit like I do with like Watkins and Fernandez. Like if they're 80-minute picks, they're like a lot worse 100%. Than when they're 90-minute picks. And I think the 2 like early Watkins subs are probably just like he played 0 minutes of preseason.
Exactly.
So I don't think he'll come off at 60 all the time, but I think Duran is probably more of a threat than he has been in previous seasons. And Watkins at 80 minutes, it doesn't seem like the one to me. And I think on review as well, the pen share's up at like 60%.
Yeah, which seems high as well.
Yeah, so, yeah. I think it's more like 20% or so. We've got a bunch of juice raids. So thank you to FPL Juice. You sent all your viewers at the end of the stream. Really appreciate it. It's lovely. We've had a what keep players. I think we've what keep. Oh, if you don't plan on wildcarding soon, I think if you don't plan on wildcarding soon, you'll have those key players already. To be honest, otherwise you should wildcard soon. But But kind of like looking like the next few weeks strong template is that midfield three that we mentioned. Like Trent looks good for the next few. Potentially Robertson or Guardiola to go with your Poro, rather than the Gabriel. And then Solanke when he's back. Armstrong looks good. Mbomo, Eze. Yeah, it's like it's all the kind of like it's such a silly game, right? We're picking from like 40 players or something, right?
Yeah, you've got plenty of choice. I mean, from some of the teams where you're looking at cheaper options, I guess, like just in general, Brighton and Villa have a good run of games, so they're a team to look at. Chelsea as well. If you dare to shop into like some of the defenders that seem like they're quite nailed, like Cucurella and Colwell, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Are they like how much do you trust Chelsea defense, like level wise?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look great from data or what I'm watching, but yeah, that's why I'd probably just back a Villa defender for now, or even a Brighton defender, yeah, or attacker.
Yeah, I was about to say that, like Villa, Brighton, even the Tottenham 4.5s as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like they all seem like competitive picks with the Chelsea 4.5s for sure. But I've got to highlight this one from Andy.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is Manchester United. Sadly.
Leeds fans being insulted. But like Newcastle fans should be on the side here. Like,
sure.
Yeah. I love it. And okay, I think we take like any last ones from the chat, get them in now. Otherwise, this seems like the last one that we're going to drop in. And then we can start wrapping it up. So Louis Bonilla or Bonilla, I don't know. Name sounds Spanish. I'm going to go with Bonilla. Tell me if it's wrong. Eze to Mbomo. I presume you mean now.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that move. I think you can go either or, but sort of moving in between Mbomo and Eze doesn't make too much sense. If you're going out of Nkunku, you can choose one of them, but yeah, I wouldn't do Eze to Mbomo.
Yeah, I have to say I don't see any reason to sell Eze. I'm kind of puzzled by. Well, I'm not puzzled. I understand like why he's not down. He's blank twice, but like it's still puzzling.
Yeah.
Like the guys look great. He had a goal disallowed incorrectly in game week 1. So I dodged a bullet there not owning him. And then like decent enough metrics last game week. Like yeah, I think he's kind of he's a long-term hold from my opinion. It says the price drop is why, and I would say the price drop only matters if you want to sell them. Right. That's the only actually the time when you lose the value. Like otherwise, all you still have if you keep them in your team for the rest of the season, let's say, just for argument's sake, you still have as much money for all your other spots, and plus Eze in your team. It's only when you sell a player that you actually lose the money. So unless you're looking to sell Eze anyway, like if you think he's become a bad pick, like I wouldn't sweat it. And if you are correct that he is a good pick, but then he'll go back up again in price. Okay, start 3 or 4. Eze, ESR, Muniz, and Rogers. I would probably bench Smith Rowe, I guess. What about you?
Yeah, same.
Cool. No dramas there. One for you. What is the cheat sheet? Time to plug it.
It's just a series that I do where I just run through all the assets in FPL that I think are viable, like on every price point, sort of just rate them by like how efficient I think they are. So it's coming out probably Thursday morning.
Okay. Can you give us any spicy previews?
I think Evan Nilsson will feature on the cheat sheet. I think that's about it. Maybe because I tried to stay up to date. So it's like if there are big features, it probably means that my previous cheat sheet was awful. So there aren't significant changes. maybe a sad small little Bruno drop as well for us analytics fans.
Oh, damn. Small tear dripping down my face. Let's chat about Evan Nilsson. He's making an appearance like high, low, high. I'm guessing it's like a
high. I think to be honest, like I can't say I'm super clued into Bournemouth. So of course Enes Unal is still in the team. But I think we have to assume that he's on penalties because he actually has a decent record historically. So that's already a lot of implied value there. And if you're confident that he'll continue starting, he seems like a really good pick. Like I would actually consider him maybe on even a wildcard 3 if I was gonna press it myself. But maybe that's also because I'm someone who's a little bit low on like someone like Armstrong for now, or I don't really want to be. I think one of the issues with going double 5.5 is if you, let's say, own João Pedro and he's good and you don't really like, or maybe you're sick of Armstrong, I guess it's hard to move out of Armstrong to another 5.5 because Vardy seems like his minutes are low. Someone like Strand Larson, you might not think that the value's there because he's not on pens either. So then it's maybe nice to own someone like Evan Nilsson who's at that 6 million price point where you can sort of maybe move in and out of those sorts of players instead and have that be a bit more of a balanced structure. But yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Evan Nilsson.
Yeah, okay. That it's an interesting point about the price points. I think that makes a lot of sense. I do have some views on Evan Nilsson actually. I'm less keen than you are, I think.
Yeah.
I think he probably will be on penalties, but I'm looking at like less hot on his record. I think he's like 3 out of 5 in his career.
I should quickly check that. Well, 7 out of 9, but yeah, it is 7 out of 9. But that's fine.
Wait, where'd you get that?
Transfer market.
That includes youth.
Okay, yeah, fine. You're discounting that. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, fine. So yeah, 7 out of 9, including youth team minutes, but 3 out of 5 senior, just from FBRF.
Okay.
And then his numbers in the Portuguese league were good, like pretty damn good. Not like absolutely popping like best in the league, but like definitely good. I think last year he was like 0.6 or so, like expected goals and assists, non-pen. And then that seems good, but the Champions League numbers for him really concern me as like how well he'll translate to a tougher league. So obviously, like any one season is a pretty small sample. It's like only a few hundred minutes, but when you put like 3 seasons together, he's got like 1,500 minutes and he's like 0.15 expected goals. Same on assists, and that it gives me like some like are you actually good? Concerns, but I mean, I guess we'll see. I think like Solanke's numbers also improved under Areola in that system as well. I think like there will be some level of like if he can do a specific like small set of things, like I think the system will be like coherent, and that should help him. But like, yeah, I don't think I would be going that early. I think I want to wait and see like how he translates to the Premier League on him, especially.
No, that's fair because I think Bournemouth's fixtures sort of tail off as well after gaming 3. So yeah, makes sense to wait.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't really looked at that. I banned all the Bournemouth 5.5s in my pre-game week 1 solves, and then I haven't looked at them since.
Yeah, I think Shad and I quite like Semenyo, but only because his minutes looked good. Because like there's no right wing depth at Bournemouth, but
yeah, I think to be honest, that was a good call. I banned him out of laziness. I thought his minutes wouldn't be as good, and I didn't look into it. And now he's got 13 points, so he's actually smashed it. But never mind. And okay, Andy, on work hard forward, plan for Haaland 7. Doing 3 mil in the bank, so optimal for making another transfer in 7. I don't think I can answer that, to be honest, without knowing more detail of your team. Like it depends on which transfers and which players, and especially if you're going to work hard in advance of that, you have a lot more flexibility. I'd say like leaving 3 mil in the bank isn't necessarily bad. It just depends on what you're giving up by doing so.
Really? 3 mil in the bank?
Yeah, like I mean, I ran with like, and certainly quite a few people ran with like 7+ mil in the bank for like a while. last season. Like I wildcarded in game week 20 and left 7 mil in the bank to do Alvarez to Haaland in one move, and then had to delay it.
Yeah, okay, fine.
3 weeks. I ended up running with like 7 mil in the bank for 3 weeks. So it's not the end of the world as long as the EV's there. Like I'm not really stressed about what your bank total is.
Yeah, I guess I'm just finding it hard to believe you won't have like a much higher EV path just going with the money used, or at least saving 0.5 at best. But that's fair.
Yeah, I guess if well, like it depends on how. Let's accept Andy's constraint of like you want to get Haaland in 7.
Yeah.
Then you could be saving a free transfer, right?
Yep.
Oh, well, no, you couldn't actually with 3 in the bank, could you? There's no strikers.
There's no direct. Yeah,
Haaland.
exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't work. So yeah, I was thinking if you could get there in 1 free transfer rather than 2, it definitely changes the equation. But yeah, maybe you could find like someone with short-term fixtures that you want to get. No, yeah.
I think just find a nice 2 free transfer like opportunity on 7 that you're happy with, and make sure the rest of your team can withstand those 2 free transfers being made, and that's probably better off. But
yeah, or skip,
or don't go Haaland.
Yeah, or skip Haaland.
Yeah.
Bench 3. Dunk Consa wings. Okay, we got to touch on this.
Okay.
So as everyone can see, me and Fran are both analytics managers, and we both have exactly the same team.
Yeah.
There we go. We're done. Unless you have anything more to say.
No, I think if you look at the Analytics Elite 64, you have to scroll down to like 40th place before you find similar teams. So yeah, that's all I have to say as well.
Yeah, I think if you look after a single game week and you look at all the teams that have the same number of points, you're likely to find some ones that are similar. Even the same, because you're looking at the ones that got the same number of points, not the other teams. I will be slightly fair. I think analytics like picks from a smaller pool of players because it doesn't pick bad players.
Well, that's even more fair.
To put it bluntly, and like that doesn't mean that you copy all the same team, but if you're picking from 40 players rather than 60, because you're not picking like 20 of the bad players, then you're going to get more teams that are the same just by chance. But I don't think this means like anything for the game really.
Yeah, I mean, and you have a larger constraint when you have Haaland at the start, and there's a lot of very reasonable picks in game week 1 that a lot of people gravitate towards. So it's very likely that a lot of Haaland only teams look similar. Whereas when you look at your team and compared to some other Salah only teams, I think there's a bit more flexibility there, and it's very unlikely that we would have missed out on good picks. So it's very likely that our teams are homogenous. So
nice. Okay, I'm going to do one last one, just saying it's a nice note to end on. Sorry for all of those that we didn't get to. You both had good starts to the season. Do you think you've made any mistakes so far? Fran, hit me.
Yeah, Konsa. Yeah, maybe Nkunku as well. Because to be honest, I was considering going off Nkunku once the João Felix news was already rumored the first time round. And I think one of the issues with some of the Haaland-only teams that have 7 attackers is you're very reliant on no injuries happening. So I probably should have considered the idea of just going for one of the options that I was thinking about, which was something like Minte plus Smith Rowe plus João Pedro. Therefore, you have 8 attackers or even Rodgers within the mix, and to avoid like even having to deal with a situation like that. Because my issue this week is I have to make the Nkunku transfer no matter what. Obviously, he's just a horrendous pick, so he's a transfer out. But let's say I have 8 attackers. Even if one of my players became a bit of a dud, I have naturally just that insurance there of having 7, as opposed to just being forced to transfer. So something to think about for sure. But it was tight, I think, with Haaland only teams, which is why you see like the variation between Dunk Konsa wings being Barco Rodgers. So it's not like, I guess, the Nkunku draft structures with Haaland were very good looking in the first place. So something to think about.
Yeah, okay. I kind of agree. on the. I don't actually think that was a mistake though.
Nkunku? Yeah.
Well, Nkunku nor starting with 7 attackers. Like I think the Haaland, because when I came on episode 1 of this, I was like had Haaland in my team. I was like kind of thinking about Salah. Probably like 70-30 towards the kind of Haaland team, and my preferred like Haaland draft I got to in the end had essentially like Winks and Haaland for Salah and Muniz, and then just like found 500,000 out of the defense.
Yeah,
which like seems fine, but like I don't think the 7 attackers is a mistake there. It does leave it a bit more fragile for sure. And Nkunku, I think like given the preseason minutes, it's fine. Like maybe like because the price point is a little awkward, that makes it more of a like consideration. Like we knew there was some risk there, but probably thought like the upside was good enough, and I think that's probably right with the information we had pre-game week 1. But maybe didn't consider the fact that it was 6.5, and that's like not a nice spot to be able to jump out of. I think I made probably a couple of like small mistakes on my game week 1 team. Like I'm not sure like many people would class these as mistakes. Like I think Armstrong over Muniz would have been better. To then give me Concert over Feis and still leave that 500,000 in the bank. That I think probably would have been nicer. I didn't really like look closely enough at the rotations with like how useful Concert is in that structure with Trent, Gab, Porro, Dunk, and then +1. So I probably didn't need to squeeze that, especially because I left 500,000 in the bank as well. But that actually turned out really handy. And the other thing, which I thought was a mistake last week, but I'm kind of like leaning is maybe not a mistake, was going Raya over Edison, just because it like put me on that triple Arsenal and then has kind of snookered me out of easy routes to Havertz or Odegaard without like spending a transfer in game week 4 to set it up. I don't know. I think I made a lot less mistakes on my game week 1 team this year than I did last year. Put it that way. Like by game week 5 I was just like I think I'd like fixed 4 like complete like terrible picks. I don't think I'll be in that kind of situation this year. So no, it's gone a bit better. I think that's all. Fran, anything else to say?
No, it's just thank you for having me on, and looking forward to watching you and Nima next.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for all your questions, everybody in the chat. And we'll be back next week. Normal programming will be resumed with Nima. So Fran, first but not last appearance, I'm sure. And everyone else, I guess I should do like the Nima promo stuff, which doesn't really come naturally. Like, subscribe, all that bollocks. Do it. Like, it's better if we like chat not into the void and we have people to listen to us. So that helps us out. Otherwise, yeah, we're done. I can find the countdown clip.